Hello, Gold participants and listeners from around the world. I'm Kristin Schwartz, licensed midwife and MC for Gold Learning. And here at Gold, we love to connect with experts in the maternal child health field. And one of those experts is here with me today, and her name is Catharine McDonald. Welcome, Catharine.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here, Kristen.
It is wonderful to have you here, and you are, of course, part of the Gold Perinatal Online Conference of 2019. Isn't that correct?
Yes, I'm so excited to be here today with you.
Wonderful. And we can't wait for the conference to start. That's just a little bit, just around the corner, basically, in a few weeks. And we want to, of course, talk about your presentation. But before we do so, I think we want to know more about Catharine McDonald. So first of all, tell us, where in the world are you located? We have an international audience here, so it's always nice to know where our speakers are from. And then also tell us a little about your background here.
Sure, thank you. So I am a licensed professional counselor in a tiny New England town on the eastern seaboard of the United States called Glastonbury. We're right outside of Hartford, not too far from Boston or New York. And my practice, Growing Well Counseling, is devoted exclusively to integrative or holistic perinatal wellness. So I support women and birthing couples from fertility and family planning through pregnancy, the postpartum, and then onward to achieving work-life balance or figuring out what their family looks like and what it means to have a healthy and well family through the perinatal or gestational period.
Thank you for sharing that. How did you get to this as a counselor? You probably didn't start out right away knowing, okay, this is what I want to do. So how did this develop? How did you choose this as a specialty for your practice?
Well, I've always been really passionate about families. My undergraduate training is in family studies, where we focused a lot on resource management and tangible, concrete tasks and how to kind of assembling those reinforcements and building stronger families. And then I went on to study community counseling in graduate school at the University of North Carolina at Greensboro, where I had the very distinct honor of interning at a women's hospital devoted fully to women through pregnancy and postpartum. And I interned on the antenatal unit where women were at risk of delivering early. And so many women were left in this hospital with no emotional supports at a really scary time in their life. And throughout my different postgraduate jobs before I developed Growing Well Counseling, I continued to encounter birthing families who just weren't supported. As I myself moved into the childbearing years, I found that many of my seemingly healthy friends and colleagues, people I knew professionally and personally, were having really negative birth experiences. And I dove into the world of maternal health care deeper because I just didn't understand what was going on. And I quickly learned a lot of things are happening and not happening that influence how women and their partners feel about their prenatal care, their birth experience. And our research shows us that that in turn impacts mother-baby attachment, maternal health outcomes, and infant development. So it really is a whole family issue, not just about women.
Right, and you made a very good point there when you said you were interning in the hospital as well. When you said these women were there, especially in these very difficult cases, and they had absolutely no emotional support. And I think this is the bigger problem that as healthcare professionals we often focus only on the physical aspects of what's going on, and we're so very busy with that. But I think in recent years, and I'm glad that this is the case, we're learning more and more about the emotional states and also emotional wellness and all that is connected, what can happen during those, especially when it comes to birth trauma and traumatic experiences during that time period. And I am so glad that you will be speaking about that here at Gold for us in the conference.
Yes, I'm very happy to be here, and I'm so excited this was a topic valued by Gold Perinatal Online Conference because this impacts everyone of birthing age. Everyone who has a mom, is a mom, might be a mom, might have a mom in their life, and their impacts on the baby, their impacts on the partner relationship, and of course the healthcare providers as well,
Mm.
because we all know vicarious trauma is real, and seeing women come in with trauma and not knowing how to care for that can be traumatic. Witnessing traumatic events around the intrapartum period can be traumatic, and providers who dedicated their profession life to caring for women and birthing families, they need to be well too.
Mhm.
So we're going to mention that briefly today. Everyone's wellness matters.
I like that you said that everyone's wellness matters. It's of course the wellness of the mother, but also, as you mentioned, the family, the partners, the healthcare providers that are caring for these, families. I think it all goes
Mhm.
together, and there's still so much to explore and learn. I feel like in the last few years, this has become a field that we discover so much, right? But it's still, I feel like it's you just we're just digging at the surface so far. There is so much more. Don't what do you feel when in your what have you come across in your studies where you go, wow, this is
I think that we are in a really exciting time of change and growth professionally as more of the links are connected. So, um, when I was working at over a decade ago at this point at that women's hospital, I don't feel like there was nearly as much discussion about birth experiences. And then over the past few years, with certain documentaries and more and more women blogging about their experiences and taking to social media, we've heard more about how someone feels about their birth, and that's very different than even one generation ago. And
yeah,
it wasn't that long ago that women were being put into twilight sleep or even fully unconscious to give birth. And now we have birth plans, and doulas are becoming more well utilized around the world. And it means so much more than just mom and baby coming home alive or leaving their
right.
place of birth alive. And so the more we can lean into that and honor that, the more women will get off to a healthy start emotionally, nurturing and building maternal infant attachment. The more babies will thrive, the more they will grow into healthy, emotional young adults, and then adults who may then birth themselves or may feel compelled to empower other people and support other people.
So this is something that certainly can benefit generations from now, right?
Absolutely. And I can only hope that over the course of the next decade or so that we're going to work toward, now that we've recognized birth trauma is very real and that past trauma impacts birth, now I want to see what are we going to do about it. And I love educating healthcare providers, because as a midwife, you can take home this information, you can put it to work with your clients on your caseload today in this moment.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't have to be a fancy intervention, just the way that women are spoken to around their birth, in birth, and the intrapartum, that can have a profound impact for years to come.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now let's dive into your presentation a little bit, the intersections of
Yeah.
trauma and birth. So tell us a little what you're going to be talking about there exactly.
So I'm going to share my model later in the presentation that I've sort of developed. I think that trauma and birth intersect in a variety of ways. There are some women who and their partners are survivors of a trauma. And for some, the birth experience or prenatal care, the intrapartum experience it can trigger or bring up things, whether or not someone is cared for well. They Some aspects of their birth or prenatal care can be difficult for them. A survivor of sexual assault or abuse, or somebody who's had domestic violence in their life in one way or another. And birth is a very vulnerable time biologically and psychosocially, so that can be difficult. Other people have unrelated traumas. They may have medical traumas. I had a client once who had a really traumatic experience around an ankle surgery and was terrified of giving birth because she would have to return to a hospital. So it had nothing to do with her birth, but the sense of being out of control of her body and trusting medical providers was a big obstacle. And then we've got unavoidable traumas where something goes wrong.
Mm.
Even with the best prenatal care, sometimes things get complicated in birth, and that's why medical professionals like yourself are so important and crucial. There needs to be a trusting relationship with a medical provider so that good medical care can be provided. And then there's avoidable trauma, which unfortunately
Mm.
happens more in some scenarios than in others, where something is said or done to a woman or not said or done that leaves her feeling traumatized by her birth experience. And our stats show us that about just over a third of women who have given birth feel some trauma around their experience. And I think it generally falls into one of those three categories. My thought is that that's those people who have acknowledged that it's traumatic and have processed and accepted something traumatic happened. So I'm guessing it's probably closer to 40%, if not
Mm.
higher.
Mm.
Um,
That's
so
it.
it's a significant portion of birthing women around the world.
Absolutely, it's a high number. Yeah, absolutely. And the more we learn as professionals who care for these women, the more we can assist the families and the better service we provide and possibly can prevent traumatic experiences to a certain degree as well. So I am very
Exactly.
thrilled that you will be presenting on this. So before I let you go, my last question here for you. What is it that you hope our delegates will take away from this presentation?
My hope is that delegates will learn that there are many things out of their control, but how they respond to them can have a profound impact on what the woman, the birthing person experiences and how they feel about their birth. You may not be able to prevent something traumatic from happening, but how you react and validate that something was difficult for somebody, that also stays with them.
Yeah.
And I've had clients who had things go catastrophically, but a midwife stood by them and held their hand through it and talked to them and debriefed afterward. And they felt a sense of closure and validation. My midwife knew how serious this was,
Uh,
and she helped me through it. Or my doctor acknowledged how brave I was, and I thought I was just panicking, but it really was a big deal, and that you are your best tool for empowering your patients and your clients. You don't need any fancy interventions. You need to acknowledge that sometimes birth is scary or things about birth are difficult, and it's perhaps one of the biggest things your clients are going to do in their life.
right.
So just validation can be so incredibly powerful, and we're going to talk more about that as we dig into the presentation.
Validation. That is powerful and very, very valid point there. And I'm so looking forward to the presentation, Catherine. It was a pleasure having you here and chatting, and I'm looking forward to having you back here with us in October for the Gold Perinatal online conference of 2019.
Oh, thank you, Kristen. I'm so very excited to be with Gold Perinatal Online Conference this year, and I can't wait to share more about intersections of trauma and birth.
Wonderful. We'll see you there. And now for our listeners, this presentation will be live on October 15th. And we encourage you to check out our website for the information on all the presentations that are part of the conference and also when the presentation is held in your time zone and how you can sign up for it and be part of it. So go to goldperinatal.com and I hope we see you in October. Thank you everyone for listening. Bye bye.